on.
Mm. This is the Lisa Baxter Show. I am so glad you tuned in on tonight. I am just so glad. I hope you got your favorite beverage and have a seat, your snack, or maybe no snack at all, because I just want you all ears on tonight. Okay? So before we start the show, one of the things I wanted to say is Tamika James, one of the great warriors, has passed away, and I want to give condolences to her family. We care, and we are praying, and we just sending out love to you and your family. Okay, we had to say that for a beautiful warrior. We just had to say that. Now, this is the Lisa Baxter Show, giving you the 411 in the kidney world. Well, again, hi again, and I'm so glad you tuned in. Listen, this may be symbolic, but I wanted to give awards to those dialysis patients that's taking care of business, that's showing up to their treatments, that doing what they have to do to survive, to live this life, but not just live, but just to go on, to be alive and to thrive. And for you real hardworking ones, you got the big one right here. This is the big award right here to you. Because on this network, we love you, we care about you, and we're here for you. We're here to listen, and we're here to teach, and we're here to learn. Okay? So now, I would like to introduce my guest. My guest, he's a director. Let me read it. How about that? He's a director of education and development, okay, for the National Kidney Register Exchange Program. One of the best in the world, one of the best in the world. And I'm going to have him tell you and explain to you all that he's offering with this wonderful program for every transplant patient out there who needs a transplant. His name is Joe Sinacore. Joe Sinacore, welcome you to the Lisa Baxter Show. Come on up in here. Come on up in here.
Hi, Lisa. Nice to see you tonight.
Hi, Joe. How are you?
Doing great. It's a beautiful spring day today, wasn't it?
Excellent. Excellent. Yes, it was a beautiful day. I had the coat with me. I put it on. I took it off and I had to put it back on. How about that? So we met at the Rogerson table discussion one year, a
That's
couple
right. The
years
round
ago
table
back,
discussion.
right?
That's right. And
And
that
we
was a
were,
follow up. That was a follow up to the
oh
big
yeah,
initiative at the
yeah.
White House. Remember that?
Mm-hmm,
Uh-huh.
mm-hmm. And also at the event when I got the award with with Julia, and she was on the show. She was my first guest on the show a couple of weeks ago.
Yes.
So see, we all in the same circles
That's
doing
right.
great things for people together, right?
Absolutely.
All right, all right. Now, one of the things I wanted to ask you is what is a day like in doing your kind of work? I'm gonna break you up piece by piece about what you
Sure.
do, but what is a day like in your kind of work that you do with the kidney registry?
Well, it's very hectic. There are a lot of people in need of a kidney transplant, and
Mm-hmm.
people who make it through into our program, they register at hospitals that are registered in our program,
Yes.
um, are being run through this matching system on a daily basis, and we look to try to create these kidney exchanges, which I'm sure we can talk more detail about further down the line here on the show. But we're busy every day working with the hospitals, getting them to enter their patients and their patients' donors into our systems. And that's the first piece, the most important piece. It's like the lottery. You have to be in it to win it, right? So we have to get
Yes.
the patients all entered into our systems so that towards the end of the day, we can start to run our matching system and create these kidney swaps where we're exchanging people's donors for a better match. With that come a lot of moving parts. There's a lot of things that have to be perfectly in place and defined. There's a lot of data, people's blood types and people's tissue types and all that. Everything has to be all perfect in the system.
Mm-hmm.
And the hospitals have a lot to learn about how to use our systems to take the best advantage of the tools that we've built for them in order to do this. So there's a lot of questions that come in on a daily basis. We're on the phone with the personnel at the hospitals, the nurses, the doctors, the scientists, and so forth. And we're kind of running that. And that's just for the matching piece. Then once
Yes.
we make these matches, we get very busy to work on the logistics. Because if you have a donor and you need a kidney and you have a donor but they're not compatible, and we find a way to swap your donor with someone else's donor on the same day, there's logistics involved in that. And
Excuse me.
bless you. And the kidney could be coming from 1,000 miles away, so we have to arrange the logistics to make sure that we have a way to pick it up at the right time of day and get it to the recipient hospital in a timely manner, so all the surgeries can be, the transplants can be performed. The
Uh-huh.
logistics are very complicated. There's a lot of things that can go wrong, and our operations people work on dealing with all those things, all those details on a daily basis. And then I'm spending a lot of time going out to the hospitals, flying out to the hospitals and doing presentations to help educate the personnel at the hospital on how to have the
Hmm.
discussions with their patients, because they have to educate their patients in order for the patients to make an informed decision on whether they should or shouldn't utilize our program.
I agree. I had to do that.
That's right.
Continue.
So there are a lot of there's a lot of challenges in transplant. Anything can cause a transplant to be postponed or canceled. Patients, get sick. Donors get
Yes.
sick. Sometimes donors back out. Sometimes patients have second thoughts about whether they really want to move forward with the transplant if there are other medical issues. As you know firsthand, that when you're on dialysis, there are a lot of other medical issues that you could have while
Yes.
you're on dialysis. Some of those things can interfere with your ability to be able to move forward medically and safely for a
Hmm.
transplant. And most importantly, for the donor, you know, people who donate their kidneys when they're living are doing something that is really amazing. A living donor is basically going to a doctor who's going to take that kidney out of this person and operate
Yes.
on this person. And this person is not sick. If anybody ever heard of something called the Hippocratic Oath, which is what doctors take this oath when they become a doctor, which means the Hippocratic Oath means to do no harm. So they're kind of putting a donor in a little bit of risk because it's surgery. Every kind of surgery has risks. So it took a long time for doctors to come to terms with, even using living donors. Of course, we've been doing living donors as a transplant community for many
Hmm.
decades now. But they really have to make sure the donor is absolutely 100% healthy, and they won't move forward with the donation if that person's not healthy. So there's a lot of time that goes into, a lot of donors get declined, not because they're particularly unhealthy, but because if they're not in absolutely tip top health, they don't want to put the donor under any major risk.
Joe, excuse me. Can you stay in the center of the screen?
Oh, sure. I'm sorry.
Believe it or not, I can't see you.
Oh, wow. Is
Yeah,
that
but I know
better?
Steve can see you.
Is that better?
So, okay. So, yeah. Well, what has made you? I know you have a strong passionate about this.
Yes.
So, what has made you passionate about doing this work?
The numbers.
Hmm.
We know that right now, there's approximately 135,000 people waiting for solid organs. That includes kidneys, livers, hearts, and so forth, right?
Hmm.
Of those 134,000 people, 94,000 of them are waiting for a kidney. And,
Wow.
and those are just the people who have been registered and have agreed to be considered for transplantation, period.
Hmm.
So they're waiting on the deceased donor organ donor list in order to receive a kidney. So the majority of the people who are on the wait list for any kind of organ are kidney recipients. Of course, part of the reason why there's more people waiting for kidneys than there are for hearts is that because we have this thing called dialysis. Dialysis
Yes.
is a way to allow people to continue to live as their kidneys are not working, right? Without the dialysis, they could die.
Wow.
Dialysis is, as you know, is not. nearly as good as having a functioning kidney, and there are medical challenges. So the better form of treatment, when you look at the statistics of patient survival and health, is transplantation. If you're going to make a decision, if you could do one or the other right now, all right, we have a kidney for you, or you could stay on dialysis. What are you
Mhm.
going to accept? You're going to take the kidney because you know it's going to better your life. So
Sure.
knowing that there are so many people on that wait list, and that there sadly are a number of people dying every year on the wait list,
It is
means
sad
we
about it.
have a
Yes.
lot of work to do. All right, we got 3,000 people transplanted in our paired exchange program since we started 11 years ago. Okay, as great of a number as that is, that we're still scratching the surface. Like there's a lot more work to be done because there's
A
not
lot
enough,
more. A lot more. Say that.
right? And
Mm-hmm.
and
Sure.
and, and there's a lot more people on the wait list who haven't gotten a kidney yet. Some of them might have someone in their circle of family and friends who might be healthy enough to be a living donor, but these people don't even know that there's an opportunity to exchange your kidney with someone else if you're not a match for the person you intend to donate. And some of them had tried years ago and were told you're not compatible with your brother or your friend or your cousin, whomever you were trying to donate to. And they went off with their lives and never looked back. They said, "Well, I'm not compatible with my friend, so I moved on with my life." Because even for the donor, it's a big decision to want to move forward or donate or not. So um, once they kind or no longer have their head wrapped around this concept of being a donor, they move on with their life and it's over. That's it. So now the person sits there on the wait list for a deceased donor organ, waiting with all the other people. So going back to answer your question again, um, it's the
Yes.
numbers. It's the numbers, and also too, when I first was given this opportunity to move into this field,
Yes.
I came from an entirely different field. All right, I came from the field of printing and mailing for the financial industry. It was a very lucrative business, but most of that type of printing is gone. Everybody gets their statements in the mail, in email now, and not in a mailbox, right? So I was looking for something else to do. But when I heard about the numbers, I come from a Christian upbringing. I'm a diehard
Yeah.
Catholic,
Oh
very
yeah. Me
devout and
too. I know what you
involved.
mean.
Okay, so I'm devout with my faith, and I always remember the story of the Good Samaritan, the gospel story. And the Good Samaritan was the only guy who was willing to stop by and help this person who was dying on the side of the road. Well, to me, that's my Lord calling me, this field to do something. When I saw the numbers and I needed a different career because my other career was going away, I needed to do something else. And I looked at this. God is calling me to do something different.
Mm.
And it's a hard transition and it's hard work. And
I'm sure it
you
is.
know,
I'm
uh,
sure it is because
you know,
it can be frustrating. I'm sure.
right,
You care about people. You want to help them. You want to
right.
do something, and sometimes you only can do what you can do. And so far, you're doing a great job. You're doing a great job.
Listen, I have a whole team of people. Of course, my boss is his
It
brilliance
takes a
and his
team.
drive behind us. Together, we've all done this, and I've been there since the beginning. But I work with the best people I've ever worked with in my life. They're
Wow,
all dedicated, all very smart. My boss is a brilliant guy. He's passionate about this, and we're all passionate with him. And we're
a
all in it
great
together.
crew. A
You know,
great crew. Well, it takes teamwork to make the dream work. My bishop always said,
that's
Archbishop Rochford. You know.
yeah.
Well, what is one of your success stories? Maybe you have more than one, but what is one of your success stories? Because out of all of this, even though you have a deep day with the calls and the visits and the going to the hospitals and linking up and getting together, what is one of your success stories about some of this?
Well, let me start off by going back a little bit when we first started doing this.
All right.
One of the things that we were trying to do was, you see, when we do these paired kidney exchanges, we typically have a good Samaritan donor who comes forward and says, "I'd like to donate a kidney to a stranger." And we put them in the pool, and then we start making the matches, and then this person we realize is a match for this family here, right? and this person, and
Yes.
then that person's donor donates to someone else, and it forms a chain. We call this a donor chain, and the chain keeps going.
Mm.
When we first started doing this, we only had a limited number of these Good Samaritan donors. So what we used to do is we used to try to keep the chain going as long as we could. But the longer you make the chain, the more links there are in the chain, the more places there are that it could break, and the
Wow.
whole thing kind of starts to fall apart.
Mm.
And it's a lot of work. And when you do it that way, sometimes you may get less people transplanted in the long run because you're spending so much time working on one long chain. Well, the first big chain that we did was, well, the first time we did the biggest chain, the longest chain was a 30-way kidney swap. So that's a total of 60 surgeries, 30 donors, and 30 recipients. And that took
Mm.
place over dozens of transplant centers all across the country. And it was a lot of work. It took us several months to pull it off. But
Wow.
while the chain was going on, we had a Pulitzer Prize winning journalist from the New York Times approach us. His name is Kevin Sack. In fact,
Mm.
the guy is such a good journalist. He won the
Mm.
Pulitzer Prize twice. It's hard enough to win it once. But the guy's a real character and he's a brilliant
Mm.
writer. So he followed this chain to all the hospitals and he met with all the recipients and he flew around. And when he was done, he put the story together and he proposed it to the editors at the New York Times. And this process takes
Mm.
weeks and weeks and even months. And he kept emailing us saying, hey, back and about this. It's going to run sometime in the next week. They're going to give it a pretty good ride in the New York Times. So finally, we get the call on Friday saying it's going to run in the Sunday New York Times. We said, wow, this is huge, right?
Yeah.
So Saturday night comes and you get the electronic post of the Sunday New York Times first before you see the printed copy of it. So we saw the story. We read it at about 11 o'clock at night on Sunday. And I said, wow, this is it was so well done. They put a map of the centers and the chain and all pictures of all the people in it. So then the next time morning, I say, let me run over to the local deli and pick up a copy of the paper. And I look down, and what do I see on the paper? Front page, above the fold, the entire top half of the front page of the Sunday New York Times was the pictures of all the people on this kidney swap. And it was the feature story of that.
Uh-huh.
So, I mean, there's only 52 Sunday New York Times in 1 year. And we the biggest
Mm-hmm.
that we've ever had. By
Wow.
that got a call fast on down that she was going to, interview him and so forth, and that really kind of, put us on the map nationally. Everybody in the country knew who we were at this point, so it
Wow.
got a little
Now
crazy.
that's the kind
So
of exposure you need sometimes.
right,
Sometimes you're doing something on a small scale and somebody,
exactly,
see your vision or hear about it and put it out there. That's such a big
that's right.
thing.
It really is. So, and like I said before, we don't really work directly with the patients. We work with the hospitals. It's not our job to work directly with the patients and the
Okay.
donors because we're not doctors, we're not nurses. So they should be in the capable hands of the staff. You know these people. You've dealt with them. They're very capable people. They're very professional, and they know how to balance the needs between you needing to understand what's going to happen and
Mm-hmm.
your options versus your medical situation, because everybody's situation is a little different. So we want them to handle all that. So we never really we've I don't want to say never, but we rarely get to meet the people that we're transplanting in the kidney swap. It's very rare that we ever see the
Yeah.
patients. It's very rare that we see the donors because we have to work with depersonalized information. We don't know their names, and so some days, we're doing all this work and we're getting all these matches and we're getting all these transplants done. And every once in a while, we just have to stop and say, there's real people behind here that are sitting at the hospitals right now. Either, they're going to get matched in one of our transplants or were just matched and we just delivered the kidney today, and it's kind of surreal sometimes, you know?
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
yeah. But when we
Well,
do get to meet them from time
well,
to time, it's really
I mean,
special.
Joe, excuse me, Joe.
Go ahead.
Let me ask you a question.
Go
if
ahead.
a person wanted to work in this type of job or volunteer with it, what would you say to them, or how would they go about it?
Well, we don't. We have a very small team. It's very specialized. We don't really have volunteers coming in really to work with us.
Okay.
Really, the volunteers really happen at the hospitals. They happen at the organ procurement organizations, otherwise known as OPOs, which there are many states have several of them. Like there's Live On New York, which covers like kind of the
Yeah,
New York
I know
area
about
here.
them.
They have a lot of volunteers, so that those are the areas where
Yeah, I
they
volunteer with them
yeah.
myself.
So
Yeah.
you've been there. Those are the places where the volunteers work. But for us,
Hmm.
because it's all technology based, and we're moving the data and we're organizing all of the logistics, we don't really have any really volunteers coming in and working with our program. We don't need it.
Right,
In
right.
fact, even though we're a nonprofit organization, the hospitals are covering the cost of it costs us to run our services and stuff. So it's not like we're not really doing much fundraising or anything like that. And we did
Right.
that in the beginning just to kind of help jumpstart it. But once we kind of got up and
Well, you
running, we
don't
didn't
need it now. Yeah.
need to do that anymore.
Mm. Well, you now that you're doing this on a larger scale, what if a person, since you're doing this internationally, right?
We're trying to do it internationally, but we haven't had good success outside of the U.S. because
Oh, okay.
there's a lot of geopolitical barriers and regulatory issues that make it very difficult. For example, Canada actually has their own paired exchange program, which has had some reasonable success. They've done about 1,000 paired kidney exchanges
Uh-huh.
since they started as well, which is notable. But they have some challenges. Like it's not the regulations do not permit them to
Mm.
ship kidneys. So
Wow.
when someone donates their kidney, and whoever is receiving that kidney, they have to have the donor fly to the other hospital and
Wow.
actually donate in the hospital where the recipient is receiving it. They're not allowed to pack the kidney up in a box and ship it, just like we do here in the
Whew.
United States. Well, that's really hard. That slows you down, and it's very inconvenient for donors. We
Mm.
want donors to stay close to home where they have a support system. So after they donate their kidney, someone they know or love can come and kind of be with them and ultimately help them get home for their recovery and so forth.
Yeah.
You don't want donors having to get on a plane and fly 1,000 miles to go home. Most of the
Oh no,
kidney
that's right.
matches that we make, I always joke around with the hospitals, and it's actually true. What I'm about to say is that
Mm.
rarely do the best matches in the paired kidney exchange ever come from any less than 1,000 miles away, because
Wow.
it's a genetic diversity thing. It's like if you're sitting here in New York and you have a donor that's incompatible, and we put you in the pool and we start running our matching system, chances are you're not going to find a match anywhere locally here. So in one of
Wow.
these hospitals, but the match might show up at in San Diego or at UCLA or in Seattle,
Yeah.
and so then we're going to have to fly the kidney cross country for your patient to get it, and their donor here in New York is going to donate, and chances are it's going to be somewhere else. Maybe their kidney who's is going to someone in Texas or Chicago. You know,
Hmm. Wow. Wow. Well, when I was going on more than one list. I didn't get a chance to go on, but when I was going on more than one list, they told me I would have to fly to Florida and I
right?
would have to stay there a few months. But at the time, I was the caregiver for my husband and I could not go any
You
place,
couldn't do it.
or let anybody take care of him. I wanted to be the one to take care of him, so I couldn't do that. So I had to forfeit that.
Yes.
And
They
one thing
increase
I
your
did
wait
see
time,
on
right?
TV about the chain, I was so surprised. I was glad to see that they started adding more stuff about dialysis and transplant on some of these TV shows. And I
Yeah.
did see something with the thing you said about the chain.
Yes.
And it like you said, the bigger the chain, they started finding little problems because the chain gotten bigger.
That's right.
But they were able to fix it at some point, but it did get bigger and it caused some havoc, and they were able to fix it. But I couldn't imagine that in real life happening and you're trying to fix it. So
Yeah,
that's
and
just
there.
interesting to know. I'm sure somebody that's looking today is listening about the pay exchange,
Yeah,
transplantation. I didn't have a live donor, I had a deceased donor, so at least with this you're getting live donors
that's
and they're
right.
supposed to last longer. So
Right. Yeah, and the only downside is, you have, in order for you to get one of these kidneys in our program, you have to come to the table to get with a donor in order
Mm,
to be able to exchange it. Now, some people come to the table with a donor who actually is compatible. So you
mm.
might have, let's say, you might have a 35-year-old woman who comes
Okay.
in, and her father wants to donate to her, and they've already cross matched her, and their blood types are the same. And the father, who happens to be 64 years old,
Mm,
um, is actually an okay match. And they can go schedule a surgery for a week from now and put the kidney in. But the problem is that she's getting a kidney from an older dad, someone who's 35 years older than her. So what if she, instead of like going with her dad's kidney right away, what if they put her in the pool as what we call a compatible pair? And we try to see if we can give it for just a short amount of time, give it a month or maybe
okay.
60 days, is even better, and see if we can help her trade up to an even better match. So her father can go to her kidney can go to somebody in the pool who's already a little bit older. And maybe it's the other way around, where someone in Texas has it's the daughter donating to the father, where the daughter's 30 and the father's 65. Well, now guess
Yes.
what? This this on this side, this 65-year-old kidney is going to a 65-year-old man in Texas, and his daughter's 30-year-old kidney is coming here to this 30-year-old woman, and both parties exchange on the same day, and everybody wins. Everybody gets a better match in the long run, you know. And if they can get a better match, also a better antigen match, where their tissue is more closer to their own, then the kidney could last even longer.
Well, that's good. I mean, at least you have this thing working out, or you guys have worked the kinks out of it.
Yeah,
You
and there's
know.
always there's always additional barriers that we're working through every day, and we prioritize. We say, all right, what are the barriers that we're having today? Well, if we can speed up this, or we can put this, switch in the system that will make the system run better, or make it easier for the hospitals to put more patients in the program, will enhance the system to allow that, and it allows us to
Yeah.
move even faster. When we first started this, we could barely get 20 transplants done in 1 year. Now, last year we did 619 of them in 1 year. So each year we keep growing and accelerating because we're finding ways to, enhance the systems and enhance the process to make it even better. Also, too, there are more transplant centers joining the program every year too.
Wow.
You know,
See, we need programs like this, and
yeah,
it needs to be out there more that you're out there.
yes.
I
People
mean,
need to know that
I
they have
knew
an
a
option.
little bit from you and I talking, and then I knew a little bit from we were at the round table together. But now I'm hearing it a lot bigger. Even before the show, when you and I, Steve, talked a little bit, I learned a little more. So each time I'm learning a little bit more, and I'm sure the people out there also learning a little bit more. From
Absolutely.
what you're giving, what you're talking about. If a person wanted a kidney, because I'll say that next. But if a person wanted a kidney or to be a part of this program, what would they have to do first? What's the steps?
Well, I mean, the first thing is, obviously the first question is, do you have a living donor, someone who's willing
Right?
to be evaluated by the hospital to become your donor?
Okay.
Uh,
Donors, number one.
that's number one.
Yes.
So then you want to register, and then you want to make sure you're registered at a hospital that's in our program. Which, if you go to our website, there's a place where it says a map of transplant centers, and you can look up the, transplant centers that are in the program. Because if you're at
Oh
a
yes.
hospital, there's a
Mhm.
there's a handful of hospitals out there around the country that haven't joined our program yet for a variety of reasons. If they're not in our program, we can't help them. You know, so, like, here in New York, at least three hospitals in New York City working with our program. We have Montefiore,
Uh-huh. Joe, what's
Cornell.
the website? Say it nice and loud so
It's
everybody out
if
there
you
can
go
hear you.
to www.kidneyregistry.org. That's
Uh-huh.
kidneyregistry.org. You can go to a about us page, and then there's a map of transplant centers, and then there's buttons there you can push. Like, if you wanted to register with one of those hospitals, you
Mhm.
can pick the button that fits your situation. There's two main buttons. One is I need a kidney, and the other one is
Okay.
I want to donate my kidney. And there's
Oh, wow.
kind of a process there, and there's information about how the program works and all that. So that's how people get in. But just to see which transplant centers are in a program, because if they're at a hospital that happens to be on our program, when they walk in the door, all they have to do is say, I want to explore paired kidney exchange through the National
Okay.
Kidney Registry. That's all you have to say. Most hospitals will already tell the patient this, but just in case they don't, sometimes they might forget. It's
Yeah.
important for people to also ask the nurses there, or tell
Mm-hmm.
not ask them to tell them, I want to be considered for paired kidney exchange so that I can get the best possible match in exchange for the kidney that my donor is donating into the program. You know.
Wow. Well, I like that you said on the website there was a button, about being a wanting a transplant and wanting to be a donor. So that's a choice right there.
Right.
And then you also gave them the power to bring their own donor with them, because
That's right.
sometimes people act funny about strangers or
Right.
people they don't know. Some people just do. So it's good that you gave them the option of bringing somebody.
That's right. Because that's the only
Yeah.
way you can. That's the only way we can really help them is in an exchange. If they don't have a donor, as was your situation, then the only option is really to make sure you're registered at one of the
Well, yeah, that's the
programs.
main option. Who you gonna exchange with if there's nobody?
That's right. So then all you can do is be on the deceased donor wait list, and pray that you know, your priority comes up so that you finally
Mhm.
get that match offer for your kidney, as you did. And thank God you did, because you look wonderful. Since
Yes.
you got a kidney, it's life changing. You know,
Yeah, it really is. It
you
is
know.
life changing.
And of course, as and it's there's the things you have to do to protect yourself after you get a kidney,
Yeah.
like your immunosuppression medications and things like that. Those are not they're not optional. They whatever they tell you should be taking. You have to take those, because if you don't, you put your own kidney at risk. And
Mm.
it's hard to get a second one. It's hard enough
I
to get the
tell you.
first one. You know.
Yes. Now you're working with several hospitals. You said, right?
Yeah, no, we have this. We have about 90,
Now,
90 in the
suppose
program.
I'm on the list that I'm on the list at a hospital that's not registered with you. What will I do in that case?
Well, it's not easy. You have to
Not
see if
easy.
you can
Okay.
get transferred to one of the other hospitals that's in our program. The good news
Okay.
is that most of the big transplant programs throughout the country are in our they're already in our program. There's only a handful of
Okay.
centers that are not participating in our program yet.
Okay.
And we continue to work on with them, to say, hey, listen, I may talk to that hospital and say, listen, you really should consider joining my program, because I can help your patients. I see, I tell them, I'm not a
Wow.
salesman, okay, but
I like that.
everybody, listen, everybody's a salesman, but I'm not. My job isn't to go out and just be a salesman, knocking on doors. Hey, would you like to join my program? No, my job is to go out and educate the centers on their options, so they can educate their patients on those options that could be achieved by using our program. And if they're not interested, then I walk away. I'm not gonna call them every week or every month saying, hey, what's up, because if they're not, they have to put some effort into this as well.
Yes.
There's a lot of work that the hospitals have to do in order to comply with our workflows in our program. So, like, if their heart's not in it, they won't be successful in my program. I've seen that happen too, and sometimes it's not their fault. Sometimes they don't have the resources, or they don't have the nurse coordinators, or they don't have enough surgeons on staff
Yeah.
to
I've
work in our
seen it
program.
too.
You know,
I've
so
seen it too.
that's a whole other issue. But there's a couple of big hospitals out there that they're trying to do this under their own roof,
Hmm.
because they have a lot of patients and donors under their roof, and they want to try to make their own little chains under their own roof. But you can do that, but you have a limited size pool of options to make matches from. You see, in
Hmm.
my pool, because I have 90 transplant centers, all contributing patients and donors in the pool size is so much bigger that the possibilities of possible matches in the exchanges are greater. It's a simple math game. The more you
Yeah.
have in
Yeah.
there, the more possibilities you have at the back end of it. So that's what these are the cases that I make to these hospitals to try to, to work, with my program as opposed to trying to go it alone. You know.
Wow. Well, at least it's a start, you know. If well, you said transferring it would be hard. If I did all the tests, all the tests,
Yep.
the treadmill,
Yep.
the GYN and all of the long tests. When I transfer, all of that work goes with it, or do I have to do it all over again?
Yeah. It should. Technically, they should be willing to release your medical records.
Okay.
But the
Yeah.
hospitals are very. They can be a little bit reluctant
Hmm.
to transfer people's medical records. It's just the nature of the field, but the patients have to demand it.
Okay.
And there comes a point you try to get as many of your medical records transferred over to the other hospital as possible, and then if for some reason they don't get it all, you might have to repeat some of the tests. But you get to a point where, okay, I've been waiting too long for them to get off their feet and transfer all the paperwork over. So let me just have the hospital just rerun the tests and let's keep moving here because
Hmm.
this is your life. You have to fight.
Yes,
You have to fight.
definitely.
You know.
It's
Um,
definitely your life. Yes.
you know.
It. uh, It's definitely your life. Wow.
Uh,
I'm telling you.
we all have to fight for. We all have to advocate, and that's why a lot of people too. They have someone in their circle of family or friends, even if they can't be their donor, that person becomes their caretaker to
Mm,
help them because listen, you know this personally, right? You were on dialysis. It takes a lot out of you. You could be
yeah.
tired, you can be a little foggy some days, and sometimes having somebody with you when you're a loved one who cares about you, who's going to be listening and interacting with the hospitals, if they're not
Of
giving you the
course.
answers that you deserve, that person might be more quick to say, hey, wait a minute, you're not
Mm,
giving us the answer we want to hear here. You know what I'm saying?
yeah.
But not everybody has that luxury. Some people, they have no choice but to go it alone. Because like in your case, you were the caretaker of your own husband, so it's not like your husband could be there with you. I don't know if you had other people in there with
Well,
you.
it was the other way around at first when I was the one on dialysis before he got colon cancer.
Yeah.
But he was a match for me to have the kidney. And
Wow.
he developed high blood pressure and they wouldn't let us do it.
Right.
But
Right.
when I put him to rest, I didn't remember to take the kidney, even though we were a match. I forgot all
Oh.
about it. Somebody asked me 6 months later. I didn't remember, you
Right.
know. So, wow. But yeah, you need somebody. See, he was tired of me going through that dialysis for so long.
Oh,
Sometimes it
absolutely.
takes somebody to love you enough to want to do that. I kept telling him, you don't got to do it. Let me wait on the list.
Right.
It's not really bothering me. I was healthy on dialysis, believe it or not.
Oh,
It didn't
yeah.
stop my
Right.
life. I had, a few times I passed out, but that was a little blood pressure,
Sure.
but I'm
Sure.
just saying,
Yeah.
but
But some people don't do very well at all on dialysis, and they're very, very sick.
yeah.
You know.
Hmm.
I
Wow.
have I
I'm
have a
telling you.
friend. His dad is 92 years old, and he's on dialysis, and he's been on dialysis for 10 years. And if you look
Wow.
at the man, you'd have no idea. First of all, you'd have no idea that he's 92. Second of all, you have no idea he's even on dialysis. But God love him. He looks wonderful. But in his case, he's too old to even get a transplant. They would never operate on a 92-year-old man.
Wow.
So that's his thing. He's a very prayerful, faithful man, and really, the grace of God has really kept him
Yeah.
alive longer. I believe this.
Wow. Well, some people really hang in there. Some people wait faithfully on the list. Some people have had more than one transplant. They
Yeah.
didn't mind getting I know one person had three. They didn't mind getting
Wow.
getting one again and again. Some people are scared of the knife, and then some people will, try. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I'm glad you're doing this work. I'm glad you're doing this type of work. I'm glad you came on the show and everything.
Oh, it's really
So I
nice to be.
appreciate that.
Yeah.
what you're doing and how you're doing it. We have something called, and I'm gonna say this, we have something called kidney no dang, quest, what has to do with transplants. And
Uh huh.
I that's an excellent show. If you go on Urban, you will see that show, and they might need you either on it or to work with them or something like that. I don't know if you do that type of thing. I'm just throwing it out there just in case. All right, Jared is a sweet person.
Yes.
Warriors Quest, that's what it's called.
Warrior's Quest. I'm writing it
Right.
down.
And Jared Brown, he's excellent. He's the host of that show.
Interesting.
A sweet person.
Yes.
So thank you again for coming on. I thank Barbara for tuning in. Thank you, Barbara. I thank everybody out there also for coming on and taking time to spend a nice evening with the Lisa Baxter Show. This is from the heart and not from the head. We love you out there. We want you healthy. We want you strong. We want you feeling good, feeling better, and being educated about your illness. All right. So we thank you again for tuning in. We thank you again for coming on, and we hope to see you next week. All right. So prayers, blessings, and peace. And thank you, and good night.